Yeah, so what makes the Bible reliable for you?
Well, I would just say that, the Bible passes every test. Archaeology confirms the Bible, geography confirms the Bible, science, I mean, everything confirms the Bible. The more you look into the credibility of the Bible, the more it rings true. At least that
That's
was my
funny you say
experience with
that.
it.
That's funny you say that because that's what made me start questioning the Bible, is I noticed the things in it weren't coming true. And that's what made me start questioning it. Like, for example, Mark 16, it says, "These signs shall follow those that believe. They shall cast out devils, heal the sick, drink anything poisonous, it won't harm them, pick up snakes, and they won't be bit." So I questioned that because I couldn't do that. And I knew by my faith that I totally believed in God, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm living this righteous walk, serving. I mean, I'm sold out for the Lord, but I can't even heal the sick. I can't pick up a snake and not be bit. I can't drink anything poisonous and not be harmed. So what does this mean?
And were you born
I'm
again?
confused.
Yes,
When you
I
say
was a sold out.
archaeology,
Hold on, Danny. I got to introduce you to the
oh,
panel. Thank you for joining.
okay.
Are you over 18?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you a Christian believer or a non-believer?
I'm a believer.
A believer. Okay. Well, welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
Let walk the word finish what he was saying to me,
Sure.
and then I'll let you chime
Sure.
in. Okay.
Okay.
What was you saying, walk?
Yeah, I was just, you made a good point in that, like, you haven't, you weren't able to achieve those feats, or you haven't seen someone achieve those feats.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I would argue that, just because we haven't seen it happen occur, doesn't mean it hasn't occurred over the past 2,000 years. I can think of an instance, if you look through Roman culture, for, many years, the Christians were, sought out and, unalived in various ways. And I can remember,
Yeah, that started around
reading of
304.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. I can remember reading stories about the Colosseum and how they stuck the Christians in there, and the animals refused, even after being starved, in some cases, refused to devour them. So I think, I think you
You know
make a
that
good
happened
point,
to the
but
Jews first, right?
well, it could. I mean, there's a lot of Jews that are actually Christians, but all I would say is that just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean it hasn't occurred.
So just because I haven't seen the tooth fairy, it means she's exist too?
Well, I mean, have you seen $1 million in cash? I mean, that doesn't mean $1 million doesn't exist. So it kind of goes
Well,
both ways.
it doesn't, because $1 million in cash we can see, right? It's capable of being seen.
Well, I mean, try that with dark matter, and try that with other things. Try that with logic. Try that. So I mean, I I I I get where you're going, but I just don't find it to be that strong of a case.
So,
That you don't. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
so, so walk the word. You mentioned the geography and everything lines up with the Bible. There is a there is a passage in the Prosetta that says, and this is after the gods, carved the first humans and sent them on their way, so on and
The
so forth.
Prosetta, what is that? I'm not familiar with that.
The Prose Edda is one of my texts. I'm a Norse pagan, so um, so to get back to my point, it says in the Prose Edda that, and again, this is after the gods created the first humans and sent them out on their merry way. They then created for themselves in the center of the world a city which is called Asgard. Men call it Troy. Someone's found the remains of Troy. Does that lend any sort of credence to Norse paganism?
Well, I mean, uh, I don't know much about the pagan texts, but I can tell you that if you try to fake a story, you won't be very successful at it. If you're trying to fake something that was, the when you look at the Bible, the accuracy of the geography, the accuracy of the names being used, being from that time period, it's just impossible to forge something. I mean, scholars have looked at this up and down, and it's just impossible to forge something like that.
But
Everything checks out when they look at the names. Were those period use names? When they look at
Well,
the
that's not true.
geography,
That's
when
not
they
true.
look at the
Daniel
archaeology.
got some names wrong in his book. Um,
Like,
right?
are you saying like
Like
your claim is that the
Darius the
names were in
Mede.
the wrong period,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, he said Darius the Mede existed in a certain time when really and did something that Cyrus actually did. He got the name wrong because it was in a wrong period. So
how
but
do you know that? How
there
do you
are
know that?
some contradictions. It's in the text
How do you know that?
according to what history shows
but what
when Darius the
But
Mede
like,
was
what? I guess I would ask, like, what is the standard that you use to judge that that history was true?
research.
Okay, and how did you know it was true?
You go by the evidence that they find.
Such as, like, what was it? What was
If
the
there's
exact
any,
evidence?
is there if there's proof that a king, if the Bible says a king, certain king reigned at a certain time, they would go look for evidence of that king, whether it be coins with his face on it, um, a temple that was set up towards him, things like that. They look for evidence of these people to see if they actually existed in the past or not. If they don't find any evidence for them existing, because they can't go just on literature itself, because we know literature is, it's fallible. So they go by archaeological findings to see if these stories are true or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same exact process, the Bible uses, and it confirms it. So, I mean,
But it doesn't. I
if
just
you
gave
have
you examples that it don't.
but I mean, you told me a story, but you haven't given, like, what tablet is that? Like, can you give me the actual evidence? Because if so, you'll be the first person to find archaeological evidence that contradicts the Bible. So I would love to,
What?
like, know that. I mean, what's the actual, like, tablet or stone? Like, what is it? What's that called? So I can look it up, and I can educate myself on it.
and
Yeah, I don't think it's a tablet or a stone. What they're saying is there's a claim in the book that Daniel claims. Hold on, let me get my paperwork here. That Daniel claims that Darius the Mede captured Babylon in the 6th century BCE. So when they go back to the 6th century BCE to see if Darius the Mede was reigning and ruling at that time, it wasn't. It was Cyrus the Great of Persia that took Babylon. So that story is incorrect.
and
Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of disagreements on dating. So I mean, that would be more of a dating issue. That wouldn't be, because I mean,
Right, the
the
king
thing
that was
is
ruling at
secular.
that time. Yeah.
The thing is that the secular timeline, they of course they don't want the time to match up, and so their timeline is not the same as other unbiased scholars.
Who doesn't want the
So, for
timeline to match up?
example, well, obviously, people who don't believe, they want the timeline to be false, and so they
Huh?
move the timeline by 200 or 300 years. But when you look at the actual
How can you
evidence,
move a timeline? That doesn't make sense to me.
well, they do it very easily. They'll dig something up and say that it was, 100 or 200 years later,
An
100 or 200
actual
years earlier.
archaeologist would dig something up and lie about the dating of the artifact?
Yeah,
but
I mean, I can give you an example of that. A lot of people, whenever they dug up Jericho, they found that the walls of Jericho had a systematic fall. They fell systematically outward, just as the Bible described. In fact, the way that they fell into a ditch and kind of created a ramp, exactly as the Bible described. And so what they did was, there were some of the scholars there said, well, the dating for Jericho was, 200 years too early or 200 years too late. I don't remember which way they went.
After analyzing the pottery, Garstang dated the destruction of Jericho to around 1400 BC in agreement with the Bible. But Kenyon disagreed, dating the city's destruction 150 years earlier to around 1550 BC. So the debate is over when the city was destroyed. The Bible says it was around 1400 BC. Kathleen Kenyon said it was around 1550 BC. This 150-year discrepancy has huge implications. It would mean that when the Israelites came into the land of Canaan, there would have been no city of Jericho for them to destroy. It would also mean that the writers of the biblical account would have fabricated the story of Joshua and the great battle of Jericho.
She claimed quite clearly on the basis of the pottery, dated to about 1550.
I'm just saying John Garstang had it right, Kathleen Kenyon had it wrong.
When you look over at the bulk over here and you see this rim of this pot, are you looking at that and seeing pottery from the time of Joshua?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, those storage jars are late bronze 1, the same thing that Garstang had found, and that carries over to all the other pots, cooking pots, storage jars, and bowls, and so on. Yes.
So what is the deal with pottery anyway? And how is it used to date the events in a tell? Well, think of it this way. Just like cars change in style over time, so did ancient pottery. So when archaeologists study pottery they excavate in a layer, they can estimate a date for the event that formed that layer. Pottery from different sites can then be compared with each other. These are called parallels.
Yes, in order to make my case for the dating of the destruction of Jericho, I have to show beyond doubt that the pottery in that destruction level dates to the end of the 15th century BC. And the only way I can do that in a credible fashion is to use parallels from other sites where scholars have already said this pottery dates to the end of the 15th century BC. And so it's not my word only. It's the word of all the other scholars who have excavated similar material, came to independent conclusions, and I'm merely using their results and feeding it into my analysis and saying, yes, based on all this information, all this data we have from all these places, I can safely date this destruction to the end of the 15th century BC.
So they said, so it couldn't have been Joshua that caused that. And then later, we found the Amarna letters from Egypt. Basically, it was letters from the Canaanite kings sent letters to Akhenaten, who was the pharaoh at the time. And in the letters, he details that he's being attacked by the Hebrews, and he's asking for help from Akhenaten. And we have all these letters detailing all these different battles and all these different cities that line up perfectly with the Joshua's conquest.
For this project, my son Barry and I flew from Amman, Jordan, where I live, to Cairo in Egypt. And then we took a very long drive south, up the Nile River, to the ruins on the Nile's east bank called locally Tel El Amarna. So we are here at Tel El Amarna, and in 1887, this is the place where the Amarna letters were discovered. In 1887, Wallace Budge, who worked for the British Museum, was actually under house arrest in Luxor when he was brought these clay tablets with cuneiform writing on them, which ended up being one of the most remarkable discoveries in all of biblical archaeology. Budge wrote,
"A man arrived, bringing with him some half dozen of the clay tablets which had been found accidentally by a woman at Tel El Amarna, and he asked me to look at them and to tell him if they were genuine or forgeries. Whilst I was examining the half dozen tablets, a second man arrived with 76 more of the tablets, some of them quite large. I felt certain that the tablets were both genuine and of great historical importance."
And so the archaeologists, the ones that are very biased, they want you to believe that Jericho, and by the way, when you go to Jericho, you could see the burn layers of when this stuff occurred. And so they want you to believe that Jericho, according to their timeline, fell by itself on its own, was destroyed 200 years totally by itself, And then all the rest of the cities in the area, they all fell, according to the biblical timeline. And so it just doesn't make sense. What makes sense is that Jericho fell along with all the other cities did at the time. And so, yeah, there's plenty of examples like that. There's another example in Assyria where they found tablets that describe major events that happen in each year. Okay, and they found a tablet that described a certain year where there was a solar eclipse that was over their head. And so scientists, knowing that we can actually measure solar and lunar eclipses down to like basically the second, we have that science down, down to the second essentially. They were able to use that astral calendar or whatever it's called. They were able to use that to go to turn the clock back and
Walk
determine
the word.
exactly when
Wait,
that was.
I've got somebody in the chat wants you to cite those letters again. What letters were
The
those?
Amarna letters is what they're called.
And
But anyways,
where are they from?
They're from Egypt. They found them in Egypt, and they found them in Amarna.
And what do they say?
Caleb, I'm going to drop you for a minute and bring up Paul Vibes. He wants to join real quick. He's got some questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, so they find basically it is the letters from the Canaanite kings pleading for help from Pharaoh. But while he's coming up, if I could just finish on the other topic. Anyways, they found the Assyrian calendar, and in the calendar it lists a certain year where there was a solar eclipse. And so what scientists did was they searched back for that period of time. They looked in that 200 years, and they looked to see if was there a solar eclipse over Assyria, and they found that solar eclipse. And using that, they were able to find out exactly what year that was. And then using that information and using the rest of the calendar, they were able to line that up with the 4th year of King Solomon's reign. And then they were able to determine the year of the Exodus.
This is the place where one of the rarest and most impactful archaeological discoveries of all time was made. The discovery of an absolute date. So in 1853, Hormuzd Rassam was over here on the north side of the mound of Kiyunjik with a band of diggers, and they were digging down right in this area. All of a sudden revealed this stone relief with a king standing there on a chariot, and they didn't know which king this was at the time. It wasn't until much later that it was determined that this was Ashurbanipal. They started finding literally tens of thousands of tablets of all different shapes and sizes. And so these were shipped back to the British Museum and formed this huge pile of cuneiform tablets that needed to be studied and read and translated.
And on multiple tablets, he began to see this year-to-year chronology of Assyrian history. In 1867, he was translating the eponym canon number 5 out of these 7, and he was going through and making his translation of it. This is the Assyrian eponym Canon 5, today labeled as K51 in the British Museum collection. The name Smith translated as Asdu Saraib, which was later changed to Bur Sagail, was the name of the year named after the governor of Gozan, and in the next column, the events that took place in that year, including that the sun was eclipsed.
And he read about the solar eclipse. He just needed to know 2 things. Where was that solar eclipse observed from? Nineveh, Assyria. And when? Just generally when? Around the 8th century BC. Then he could go look at the solar eclipses that had happened in and around the 8th century BC and easily find the one that would have engulfed Nineveh in darkness. And so he found something very rare in archaeology. He found a date that was known with certainty, and that date was June 15th, 763 BC.
Now Smith knew the eponym year mentioning the eclipse of the sun was 763 BC. Because there was a complete list of years, this one known year meant that all the other years could be worked out up and down the chronology. In other words, the one date led to working out all the other dates. In this way, over a span of some 244 years of Assyrian history, every year became known from about 892 through 648 BC. The result was that now the BC dates for the Assyrian chronology were now known. And so the question then was that now that the Assyrian chronology had been worked out with BC dates, was there any way to sync the Assyrian chronology together with the biblical chronology? And in order to do this, you need a shared event between those two histories. Now that Smith knew that the year that the Assyrian king Sennacherib had ascended the throne at Nineveh was 705 BC, he therefore also knew that 4 years later, when the record says Sennacherib led an expedition to Palestine, that this was 701 BC. Now keep in mind that in the 1800s, when Smith was compiling and publishing his material, ancient Judah was known as Palestine. So he translated Sennacherib's expedition to Judah as an expedition to Palestine, so that the readers would know where the text was referring to. 2 Kings 18:13 says, "In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, Sennacherib king of Assyria attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them." So bam, that was it. The 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign in the Bible is the same year as Sennacherib's 4th year in the Assyrian chronology. So this is the Taylor prism, and this gives Sennacherib's own account of his invasion of the kingdom of Judah. 701 BC transferred over to the biblical chronology, and in the same way it had worked with the Assyrian chronology by knowing the one date, now the other dates for the biblical chronology could be worked out from that one date. Now I should mention that there is more than one shared event between the Assyrian and biblical chronologies. But I am only using one as an example so you can understand how it works. I hope to cover the others in future videos. So all you have to do is take the 14th year of King Hezekiah, his reign 701 BC, and then the Bible gives us how many kings ruled over Judah, how many years they reigned, and so you just count that number of years back to the 4th year of Solomon when he began to build the temple, which was 966 BC. And then all you have to do is add 480 to the 966, and then you have the biblical date of the Exodus in 1446 BC.
So we have the dating down very well.
I'm sorry, there was no Exodus. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I base my beliefs on evidence. You're not doing
Yeah,
that
I do.
now because I
I
just
do
gave you
too.
evidence right
I
there.
do too, and there is no evidence of Exodus.
If I may,
Well, that's just false, and I'm happy to talk about it.
so
It's not
Walk,
false.
could you cite those? Could you like spell out those letters in chat for me real quick? I'm really interested in this. I'd like to go look at it.
Okay.
Armana or Armania letters,
Yeah. Let me
I think you
make sure
said.
I'm spelling it right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I am time says
Okay. Here it is.
Amarna letters.
Thanks, Roger. I'll be right back, guys.
Here we go. The Amarna letters. It says here they are a cache of 380 clay tablets discovered at Amarna in Egypt. They date roughly to 1350 BC to 1330 BC, during the reign of Imhotep III and Akhenaten.
And what's on these letters, did you say? Proof of the Exodus?
No, what's on these letters is proof of Joshua's conquest. It talks about it's what it is the Canaanite kings, the rulers of the Canaanite kings are under attack, and they're writing these letters pleading for the Egyptian pharaoh to save them, and they write things like, "We're under attack from the Hebrews. Please send help now. We won't last long." Stuff like that. And it lines up with Joshua's conquest. And the same cities that are mentioned in the letters are the cities mentioned in the Bible. And we can actually go to those cities and we can see burn layers in the archaeology that line up as well. And here's the
Okay.
thing. You got to ask yourself, because you said there's no Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no Exodus, then where did this force of Hebrews come from that went into the Canaanites that we have physical proof for in the form of tablets and writings? In the ancient world, there is no greater evidence.
Right.
There
There may
is
have been
no
some
more
Hebrews, but there
valuable
wasn't
evidence than written evidence.
600,000. There wasn't 600,000 of armed Hebrews, and there certainly wasn't over 1 million that
Well,
that
I
went
can
through the
tell you
Exodus.
there was enough to conquer the entire land of Canaan and burn all
It
these
did.
cities
It
to the ground.
wasn't. So there. That's no. That's
Yeah,
just
but you're
not
not
true.
basing that off of evidence because
So there
I've
would
given
be
you nothing but
evidence if there was
evidence.
over 1 million Jews in the desert for 40 years. There would be evidence of that, and there isn't. That's the point.
There is evidence there. We have where they settled after they were worshiping the calf. You can go there today. It's in what do you call it? Modern day
So I have a
Saudi
question, Word.
Arabia. Modern
This
When
day
is
you
Saudi Arabia. You can
wild.
see all the
No, I
calves
mean, I have.
drawn
Well,
into the
that goes
stone.
against what other scholars say. So,
I have a
and
question,
historians.
Well,
Walk.
you
When
haven't
you
named a single piece
research
of evidence though. So
something, Walk, do you research the other side of it too, or do you just research your biased side?
I researched all evidence for and against,
Okay,
and
Mm.
well,
everything lines up that the Bible is
I just
true.
looked it up about Joshua's conquest, and it says here that there is a lot of scholars that contend the material evidence with the burnt layers, including the dating of these layers. It disproves a widespread unified conquest and points to a potential fraud or misinterpretation by proponents. Have you looked up
Okay, so
that?
you looked up a critique to this, and now you're reading it here when you don't even know about the Amarna letters until I just told you. So I think
So
that's very
I
disingenuous of
looked up
you.
the Amarna letters
I think if you
first.
were
I looked
honest,
up what you
you
said
would say, "Let me
first.
look
I
into
looked
I'm
up
this."
what you
sorry. The
said
host is
first.
talking. Walk. Stop.
I looked up what you said first and I read it. And then I looked up the opposite side, the unbiased side. I do that when
You
I
search
research
for that, yeah.
everything. I do that when I research everything to see if it's been debunked or not. I did that when I was a
Well,
Christian.
the thing is, you can't debunk letters that are from the Canaanites to the Pharaoh. You can't do that. So they can try to
So,
dispute it. I mean, there's
so
always going to
there's
be
Can't
Walk,
do
letters
evidence
from
I
the
that.
have a
because
question.
Canaanites
people
to a
don't want it to be
Pharaoh. So
true.
what?
Walk, I have a
But we
question,
have the
Walk.
letters, so you can't deny factual evidence.
Well, you can deny what the evidence means, though. So
Well, that's fine. I mean,
you can have
if you want to
things, but
deny that, that's
that
fine.
doesn't mean that. Well, no. What I'm saying is you can have evidence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it means what you think it means. But I have a question for you. So you're focusing on the whole the Israelite and Joshua's reign, but what about other things like where's the Ark of the Covenant? Where's
I
Moses'
mean,
staff?
yeah. I mean, those are all great questions. I mean, obviously that's a mystery. Even the Bible, if the Bible said, "Hey, the Ark of the Covenant was laid at such and such location," and we found that location and it wasn't there, then that would be, that would be very good evidence that it might not be true.
Can you
But
show
you're
me
asking for
evidence?
a specific
Can you show
mystery.
me
But
can you show me footprints of where Jesus walked on the water?
I mean,
Hey,
when's the last
buddy.
time you walked on water and it solidified into stone?
I don't walk on water. That's the issue.
Okay. So when's the last time water, like, have you ever seen water just like freeze in place whenever something touches it? Like, I
No,
think
that's
that
why it's
reveals
hard
your
to
heart, to
believe.
be honest with you. I think you're trying to set the bar to a point where like
What does that
you
mean?
don't want it to be true, so you're denying
Stop.
things.
I want you to stop
No,
right now.
no,
I want you to stop.
hang on,
Hold
wait,
on,
wait.
hold on.
I mean,
I
look what he
want
asked me
Walk
though. I mean, come
to
on.
stop accusing people of doing things.
Walk, I'm a
You
believer.
accused
I'm a
me. Now
believer.
you're right. I know. And he's accusing you of doing things. Now stop. Nobody's accusing you of being deceitful or dishonest or nothing like that. Now you stop.
Well, I can tell you that there's evidence of the Bible in archaeology all over the
If
place. I mean, we found Sodom and
Can you
Gomorrah.
show
We
me
can
found
where
am I
Jesus
coming through
wrote
that
right
they
in
now?
were
It
sand?
says
burned.
I'm teacupped. Can anybody hear me at the moment?
I
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can hear
you.
you.
Okay, I guess it's just
Walk,
being
can
buggy
you
on
show
my
me
end.
can you show me where Jesus wrote in the dirt?
with the woman caught in adultery, which is, by the way, in addition to the
Me, I
scripture
dropped
that
you
was
for a
written in the
minute just to
margins
bring
of
up
the
I Am
manuscripts.
Time because I Am Time's researched this. So
I can show you the pool of Bethesda where he healed the man. I can show you that. We've discovered that.
Okay, so you can show me physical locations. That's easy enough. But can you show me the miracles that occurred at those places?
Well, if the miracle was a permanent miracle, like say the split rock, we have found the split rock that Moses split in
Oh
the
my
desert
gosh.
in Saudi
No.
Arabia. And
No.
what's interesting about the split rock is where the rock split, we can see water erosion coming from the rock.
That's a
Can you
lie.
show me?
They
Can
have
you show me the
pictures and video of
remains?
that today.
Can you show me the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yes, actually, we can. In fact, they've discovered Sodom and Gomorrah. They've
That's not true.
excavated. It is true. I don't think you've looked at the evidence. Yeah, so
We
they
have
I
not
discovered
actually
Sodom
have.
and
found the
That's why I'm
Gomorrah.
rock. We have
asking.
not found the split
That's
rock. That is absolute hoax. That is a claim made by Ron Wyatt. He's not even an archaeologist. He's a nurse and
I
ethicist. He's not
mean,
even alive. And in fact, he was sued. His museum was sued after he died, and it's now closed because everything that he claimed was not substantiated with any evidence.
okay, well, I mean, we have pictures and videos of many people going to the
We
split rock. So to say that that's
Yes, there
false
is a
is
split
going to the
rock.
that's like
split rock.
That's not
that's
in the
denying
right
a factual
location.
statement.
That's
So
not even in the right location.
where is it?
Even if it was in the right location, you can't
Where
say
is
that
it?
this rock that has water stains on it is the rock that the Bible's talking about. There's no way you can prove that.
Where is it
There are
located?
split rocks all over the world. Do
You
you
don't know
realize
where it's
that?
located, do you?
There,
So
Can
you're
I
I
ask
saying
a?
do.
you're
I
saying it's
do.
Can I
Hold
located in the
ask a
on.
wrong
more
spot.
pointed
I
question?
do.
Where it's
Hold on a
located.
minute. I'll find my sources. I'm so
Yeah, you're gonna
sorry,
go look it
Walt,
Hang
up.
that
on,
I don't
hang on.
have the
Can I
sources memorized, but I'll
I would.
find
can
it
I
for
ask a
you.
more
So
No,
pointed
I'm just.
question?
You're
Hey,
making statements that aren't true.
you're
David,
making
before you do, real
statements.
quick, I would
Hold
just
on
like
a
to
You're
minute.
making
Statements that
statements
aren't
about
true.
fucking
Hold on a
hoaxes.
minute. I just muted him. Walk. This panel's been a great, respectful panel all morning. So I don't want you coming in here causing a bunch of chaos. I want you to be
I don't think they're
respectful.
being respectful to me. I'm happy to be respectful, but you
Oh.
What?
just got to treat
Walk.
me
You're
with
the one
respect too.
I have.
accusing people of stuff. So be respectful.
No, I'm
Walk.
calling
I have
out.
a question. I have a question because
I'm calling
I
out
assume
false
you're.
statements. That's all I'm doing.
I
That's
assume
that's
you're a
not
You're the
Christian.
one
respectful.
making false statements.
Hold on.
Walk. You're a Christian, right?
Yes, I mean we were talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. I'd
Okay.
like to go back to that because there's tremendous evidence of that. So
before
can we
No,
talk
Can
there
I
about that?
ask you a
isn't.
different one? Well, hang on. So
Look, if you
we
guys
can
if
come
you
up.
guys don't want to have a
Hang on.
conversation, I keep getting
Hang
muted.
on.
So
Walk.
I mean I can just
Walk.
leave here and
There are many
it's
faiths
fine.
that believe in the Old Testament, but maybe if you're a
Conversation.
Christian, I can ask you about the New Testament. So Paul mentions in one of his letters that there are 500 witnesses to Christ's resurrection, and the entire point of Christianity is dependent on Christ's resurrection. So can you show me witness statements from 500 people attesting to Christ's resurrection?
Danny, you said you're a believer? You sure
I
aren't
am.
talking like one.
I am a believer, yes.
Well, I would like to at least finish the Sodom and Gomorrah thing because we've excavated Sodom and Gomorrah and we found sulfur balls that are 90. I think
Oh
they're
my gosh.
98%
Oh
pure
my
sulfur,
gosh. That's not
and they're
true.
all over.
Sulfur
We have
again, a
pictures
Ron
and
Wyatt, again, a
we
Ron
have
Wyatt
picture
claim,
we
again,
have
a
pictures
Ron
of all
Wyatt
of this and
claim,
video of all of this.
again, that is
Sulfur
a
We have
balls
Ron
everywhere
audio.
over there.
Wyatt.
Hold
That
on,
is a Ron
this
Wyatt.
is
Let
not
me
being very
finish.
respectful.
Let me
You're
finish. You're
interrupting
not
me and
letting
yelling
me
at me.
finish. That is
Okay, I'll
another
let you finish.
Ron
Please let me
Wyatt
finish.
claim. That is another Ron Wyatt claim. And he is not an archaeologist. He was a nurse anesthetist. He actually didn't have any permit issued by the Israel government to be doing any excavation anywhere, any archaeological tours at all. Not at all. So none of this is backed up by science at all. None of it's backed up by archaeology. None of it is backed up by
Correct.
the Israeli government. They all say this is
Yep.
a hoax. These are false claims. Sulfur balls
Okay,
are marlstone, and if Sodom and Gomorrah burned up, there would be no sulfur balls left because it is highly flammable. So if Sodom and Gomorrah was on fire,
They're all
then there
over the
would be
place
no
here,
sulfur
literally
balls left.
millions of them.
okay. So the
Yeah, they're
problem with
finding
your
sulfur
claim,
balls today because they're made over in that area.
So I have never dropped a burning sulfur ball into the Dead Sea until now. wow, it floats. Well, that might be why they're all bunched up. Maybe they floated on the surface and then the wind drove them. See, you don't know what's going to happen unless you actually take a sulfur ball and burn it and throw it into the Dead Sea. But this is the result. This is why the sulfur balls are preserved when they hit the Dead Sea, because they were extinguished, and that's why we find them around the shores of the Dead Sea.
Okay, so the problem with that claim is that there's more than just Ron Wyatt that have gone out there. There's an archaeologist called Joel
Oh.
Kramer. You should look him up. He has 3 million followers on YouTube.
Yes,
He's
so
a
show me
professional
his
published.
archaeological
Hold on,
show me
hold
his
on. Please
permit.
don't. Please be respectful. Please don't interrupt me.
Show me his
He's
excavation permit.
Yes, so yeah, he has one. He's a
Mm-hmm.
professional, legitimate scholar.
Where's the
He's a
source?
published author. His name is Joel Kramer. You can type it into YouTube if you'd like. Anyways, he's a professional, published
YouTube.
scholar on this. He has
YouTube?
gone. Hold on.
Yeah,
He has
YouTube.
gone to this. He has gone to the site and he has physically filmed video and pictures, sulfur balls that are 99% pure. And he details all the
They're
burn
all over
layers.
there.
There's
I
thousands.
understand.
Hold on, there's thousands. Hold on, if I could just finish. There's
Well,
thousands of
we
sulfur
already
balls
know.
that burned all those cities to the ground. He's found all the burn layers from those cities, and the one city in the Bible that wasn't burned to the ground, he's excavated that city and found that there were no sulfur balls in that city, and it didn't burn to the ground, just as the Bible depicted.
Okay,
There's a
do you
cave
want?
nearby
Okay,
that
hold
he's
on,
found
pause.
evidence of Lot being in the cave. So
Pause. So this is, I don't know if you just didn't hear me or what, but sulfur is highly flammable, okay? So the existence of Sodom and Gomorrah, you wouldn't find sulfur balls in Sodom and Gomorrah. You wouldn't dig those out of the ground. They would be burnt up.
okay, so
So
how do
the
you explain all
existence
the
of
thousands of balls that are
surface
there?
that they because
They're
they
there. You can't
occur
deny they're there. We have pictures
naturally.
and
They
video.
occur naturally. There is
Yes,
sulfur residue in North
they are
Carolina
made.
on the
No,
coast.
we have
Yep,
never,
they are made
nowhere
there.
else
I have
on
a
Earth.
video on it.
Hold on.
I have a
They
video on
they
it
Nowhere.
on
are
my
a
page.
Hold on. If I could
byproduct
just
of an algae
nowhere.
in the
Hold
ocean.
on. No,
I'm
nowhere else on
oh my
Earth are
God,
these
this is
sulfur balls
ridiculous.
found. Nowhere
That is
else on the
not
face of the
true.
Earth are
That's
these
not
type of
true.
sulfur balls found.
That's not
And I
That's
true.
already
not
told you
true. There.
the one city that was still in that same area wasn't burned when
Uh,
all the other cities were burned from this event.
No,
So
Walk.
just as the Bible
No, Walk.
describes,
You
the
don't do
evidence
your
shows
research right.
that
You
those
don't do your
cities were
research
burned to
right,
the
like I
ground
said.
with sulfur balls.
Perfect example of what we see in these other sites. Conazir was destroyed by fire, literally burned to ash, and never ever rebuilt or lived in again. With all these burned cities, you have to ask what burned all these cities. They came to the conclusion in the excavations of Babadra and Numera that this was a natural disaster that burned these cities, because they didn't find weapons of war in the destruction layer. And so what caused this burning? And we have these sulfur balls all through this area of the Dead Sea.
You
can't
need to
deny
research
you can't deny
the
physical
debunking of
evidence.
it. Research the debunking of it. Like I
You
said,
haven't
you
done
don't
any
research
on
right.
this.
Well,
I have done
Yes,
research
I
on it because I
have.
believed it. God
I
believed
have
it when I
Well,
first
debunked
sounds
saw
all
it.
of
like
this.
And when
it
I
sounds
post
like
this
the
discussion,
evidence
I'm
that
going to
you're
put all these
claiming.
pictures and videos
This is ridiculous.
in the video so that they can
Walk,
see that you guys are lying.
walk.
No,
The
you
evidence
are
that you're
just
providing is
misinformed.
disputed. The evidence that you're
Right.
providing is disputed. That's the problem. So you
Yes,
can say that there's
It's not
evidence, but
disputed.
that
There's
doesn't mean
pictures
that
and
there's
video of
it
evidence.
all
is
this.
It is
disputed.
It's not disputed.
disputed.
It's not
It is.
disputed.
The entire archaeological community would have to agree on this for it to
Yep.
be confirmed. Show me a peer-reviewed study from the archaeological community and the geological community and historical community that agree that this is accurate.
All right, I'm going to look it up real quick.
I do have
Well,
to
just
say
real
that there
quick,
is no
if I
possible
may.
way for photos or videos to be doctored in any way, so that is rock solid evidence.
Well, I mean,
Right.
you would have to claim a conspiracy between probably a dozen or
Well,
so
no,
archaeologists that
again,
have gone out to
We
the
don't
site.
A
care about
dozen? Yeah,
conspiracy.
easy
again,
We
enough.
care,
it's
we
not
care
rock
about
solid
evidence, dude.
evidence.
Provide
It's
the
not rock
evidence.
solid evidence unless there is a sign out front that says "Welcome to Sodom and Gomorrah."
I mean,
Luke
12
took Paul Morris.
archaeologists,
You're
12
correct.
archaeologists
It
out of
doesn't
thousands is not evidence. I'm
it
sorry.
doesn't
I just have
mean
I just have a
Not.
it
quick
doesn't
question
it
for Walk real quick, if I may. So I'm trying to look into these Amarna letters that you were talking about, and you've studied these extensively, right? I think you said that earlier.
Sorry, I was muted for like the fourth time right there. Um, yes, I've looked into it. I have studied it. Yeah, I've looked. I've literally uh, gone. I have a book by the gentleman that actually excavated,
That's
or the
awesome. Perfect.
gentleman, the
Then
archaeologist that went out there and looked at
perfect.
them.
Then you're going to be able to help speed me up on this because what I would really like is, can you get me the ID number for the specific cuneiform tablet that speaks about what you were addressing, just so that I can just go read it myself? As you know, there's quite a few of them, and if you could get me the ID number, it'd really speed me up in trying to look for it.
I can. It's going to take me some time to give you that exact thing if you're willing to wait for it. Right now, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I'm
research
absolutely willing to wait.
the peer-reviewed studies on the sulfur balls that are definitely there.
And you can, if you need to do that first, that's totally fine. I'm willing to wait. Just let me know when you
Yeah,
grab that,
if
please,
you
sir.
can follow me, and I'll if we don't get to it here, because I suspect nobody's going to want to wait for me to do all this.
I'm
But
still
if you want, I'll
curious
send
about
it
the
to you as well.
500 witnesses.
So I mean, we can switch topics if you want, but is
Well,
that what you
again,
want to do? You want to switch?
I mean, that's up to the host. But again, there are many faiths that believe in the Old Testament. And if you're a Christian, I'm more curious about your perspective on the New Testament, and particularly starting with the 500 supposed witnesses. Where are their testimonies?
Okay. So I mean, just because you have 500 witnesses doesn't mean all 500 of them wrote it down. But what we do have is we do have eyewitness
Give
testimony.
me 5.
Yeah, Matthew,
We had
Mark,
like one.
Luke. Not Luke. I'm sorry. Matthew, John, Peter, James. Let me see.
No.
What is
I'm
that?
sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
four right there.
My apologies. I asked for eyewitness statements. None of those
Those are all
authors identify
eyewitness.
themselves as the actual. No, none of those authors identify themselves as the actual authors of those texts. So they would be
Well,
invalid.
we also have like non-Christian writings and non-biblical writings that detail the events of Jesus and the resurrect or the Jesus. Yeah, I
Of
mean
the
one of them does
resurrection
talk
of the
about the
500?
resurrection.
The resurrection of the 500?
No, the 500
No, again,
are
I'm looking
witnesses
for
that see it does. You
eyewitness
don't even know what you're
statements.
talking about.
I'm asking for eyewitness statements to Christ's resurrection.
Yes, we have that in the Gospels. We have that in the New Testament, and we have
None of
Tacitus
none of
writing
the
about it.
gospel
We have
authors.
The
Josephus
None
Bible
of the
is
writing
not
about
gospel.
the
it. We have
evidence.
Pliny the
The Bible is not the evidence. The Bible is the claim.
None of the gospel authors identify themselves as the actual authors. In fact, the
Okay, so
only New Testament
these
writer
are
that identifies
was
himself as the author is Paul.
that would have been normal for that time period, and we also have writings
Actually, it
from
wouldn't.
people that are around that area.
Actually, it wouldn't.
Like the first, we have writings from people that detail the authors of those. So like that's not. I mean, that it's a very weak claim to make, but I mean, either way, I mean, we have every New Testament book. There's 27 of
No,
them.
because you
Every
said
New
that.
Testament book can
No,
be
because
traced
you
back
said
to
that
the
the
very first
Bible.
century within the lives of the apostles
Actually, it
themselves. So if
can't.
it wasn't written by them,
Actually,
No,
it
then it would have been
can't.
that's
we
wait,
would
wait,
have
wait,
been
wait.
knowing about that.
The New
That's not
Testament
actually
writings,
true.
that's not true.
Absolutely,
No, sir.
absolutely, it's
No,
true.
That's not
no.
actually
When
true.
wait, wait. When do you think the first attestation of the Gospels having their name even is?
We have the earliest, I believe, is P52,
No, no,
Papyrus
that's a
52.
manuscript. That's a manuscript. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying
that's a
is like,
manuscript.
no. But what I'm asking of you, sir, is what is the first attestation that we have of the Gospels having their names?
I mean, again, that was normal at the time. to not. I mean, if they didn't write their
Oh,
name
No,
on it,
it
that's
wasn't.
fine.
no,
It
no, wait,
wasn't.
hang on, hang on, hang
What
on,
we
hang
do
on, hang on,
know,
hang on, because
Customary.
what we
this
do
No, it
know
was
is that
this
very.
is my
every
deal here.
single book was written
It was
within the first
very
century,
customary
No,
that
and
the
no,
if they
sir.
author
were
would
if they were
identify
false documents,
himself.
they would have been refuted by the
No,
eyewitnesses that were
sir.
there.
No, no,
No, no.
that's you just
It
wait,
was
wait, wait,
Absolutely,
very.
wait.
that's
You're
true.
just baking in. Hey, Danny, hang on 1 second, please.
And
Yeah.
You're just baking in a lot
Paul
of these
did.
presuppositions, man, because like here's the thing. They're written in the style of the second sophistic. And so if it is the case that these were eyewitness accounts, it was not a commonality for eyewitness accounts to be written in the style of the second sophistic as the gospels were.
Okay, like I said, I mean, we also have Paul that
No, no, wait. I want to
clearly
stick with
Who is
the
scientists.
Paul?
So I
gospels
mean,
right now.
so
Wait,
either way though, I mean,
I want to stick with
the
the
case
gospels right now
doesn't
because
hold
you're
water because
making a claim here, sir, and I just don't think you
we can
have a
track
lot of
everything
strong
to the first
evidence.
century.
Well, no, you're just saying that you can't track it to the first century. You don't have a
Yes, we
manuscript in the
can.
first century, sir.
No,
Yes,
we
we
Please,
can.
can't.
you don't have a manuscript in the first century. You don't have attestation in the first century. You're just making a claim.
Yes, we can because we have
No, you
writers
don't.
that tell us when a lot of these people died, so we
Yeah, no.
know that they're
When did
writing
no?
No,
But
had to
we
have
that comes
don't.
way wait. That comes
before.
way
We can
later
also look at.
on.
Hold on, my friend. There are people that know a lot more than you and I on this topic that have looked into this.
That's fine, and a
They
lot
can
of
look
them
at these
mostly agree with
writings.
my position
Hold
on
on.
this.
Well, okay, that's not true, but a
It is
lot of
true.
them, we can look at the text and we can see that the names that were used during that were names used during the first century. We can look at the writing style. We can look at the geography listed and the events within the text itself, and we can also look at the manuscripts that we have to determine the age of these documents. And all of these documents
Which are
would have
later.
been written within the
Can you
first century.
give
To
me an
deny
example?
that,
No.
You know, why do skeptics sometimes want to date the Gospels later? There's two ways to do that. One way would be to say, well, I've got textual evidence. I've got some piece of textual evidence, right? Manuscript evidence that would tell me when to date it. That is not what's causing them to date it late. What's causing them to date it late is that they see that Jesus predicted the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And because they have an anti-supernatural bias that says no one can predict that, it must have already happened. Therefore, they could put that in as though it's a prediction. And so they want to date it post 70 AD. So they're not looking at this interior evidence that we're looking at. They're not looking at all those things, missing elements. They're not looking at how early the Gospels are cited by Paul. They're not looking at about how early the first students of the eyewitnesses began to repeat the story, because if they were, they wouldn't date it this late. But instead, they're using what's dating it is that, number one, they don't think anything supernatural ever happens. So these must have been written after the destruction of the temple, and they must have been written after anyone who was an eyewitness was dead, because they contain all these miracle accounts. We know those can't happen because miracles don't happen. Therefore, they've got to be written late so that nobody would catch that. Nobody would know. Well, that to me is not based on textual evidence or manuscript evidence. That's really based on your presupposition against anything miraculous.
What we have here is that either potentially all, or at least several of the gospel authors had access to the writings of Josephus. Luke for sure did. And so it's not unexpected for them to be able to derive first century names, or that they would be able to derive geographic locations of that time. That's not an issue at all. If, like, let's say these gospels were written in the second century, that's not an issue under my model.
I mean, the whole book of Acts is like clearly written like before 70 AD.
Well, that's
If it
not
was written
true.
after
Wait, that's
70
not
AD,
true at all.
then it would
That's
have.
not true.
Yes, it is. You can use. Yes,
No,
it
it's
is.
not.
You can use the evidence within the text itself to determine a
Wait,
date
the
on it.
evidence in the text suggests that it's like second century.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
I do, because
If it was after,
I've actually
if it
looked
was
into
after
this.
the
Wait, are you
temple's
even
destruction
aware?
in 70
Are you
AD,
even
it would
He
have
aware?
been true.
actually does know what he's talking about.
Are
If
you
it
even
was,
aware of the argument involving the use of Josephus, especially the Antiquities of the Jews, within the writings of both
Yep.
Acts and Luke?
Well, first of all, Josephus confirms the death of Jesus on the cross and talks
Well,
about
that's not even
his
true either.
followers
But
and
we
the
can come
things in
back to
there.
that.
So
That's a separate. No, wait, that's
you
a
can't
separate thing
use
entirely.
Josephus and then deny Josephus. Like that's
What
not
are you talking
very
about? I'm not
honest of
denying
you. Number
Josephus. The
one.
Testimonium
Number
Flavianum
two.
has been in
Number two. When
contention
we
for
look at the
many
book.
years. You're
Number
just
two.
like
When we look at the.
obfuscating from the issue here,
Hold
my friend.
on. Stop filibustering. Stop filibustering. When we look at the
That's
ancient
not
text
filibustering. I'm addressing what you're
in
saying.
Acts, we can look and we know when a lot of these people died based on the writings of the early church fathers in the first, second, and third centuries. We can look at that. We can look at the information within the text itself. And
Wait a
if
minute.
70 AD, if Jerusalem had fallen, it would have been put into that book.
No,
And
you're
we
just
know
you're
that
just stating that
we
as a
know that that
claim,
didn't
but
happen. So
Wait,
we know for
pause.
theological reasons why Acts doesn't include those things, including the death of Paul. Like we know why theologically the author leaves these things out. Like, are
Also,
you
I want to
you
familiar
don't
add
with
know
like
anything.
there are no
wait, are
first
you
You can't
century
prove
church
any. If I
fathers.
ask you to prove that, you'll fall flat on your face.
I'm sorry.
that's not
Am I
true at
not being
all?
heard? There are no first century church fathers, so I'm not sure why you said that.
Um, there were church fathers that lived at the time of the
No,
apostles. Yes, there.
no, there wasn't.
I think
I'm sorry. There
Ignatius
is
was
That's a
no.
lived at the
lie.
time of
That's a
That is an
lie.
absolute
Ignatius,
lie.
no, Ignatius
Yeah,
was
That's a
mid
lie.
second
that
century.
is based on what evidence is that a lie? Tell me.
Yeah, what
They
no,
all
Based on the
Ignatius
fact
converted
that
as
is
there are no
adults.
first century churches. There are no first century churches. There are no first century church fathers. There
Hmm.
are no first century
That's not true
Christians.
either. We've excavated
And
first
It
century
is
the
churches.
true. No,
stories
no,
you
we
and the
haven't.
haven't.
stories of
How
them,
can
they
you
all
deny clear
converted. They
archaeological
all
evidence?
converted as adults. They were not born as a Christian. They all converted as an adult.
The earliest
So
that we have of any gathering of Christians in a particular place is dated in 230, and that's the Megiddo, the Mosaic Megiddo Mosaic, and that's in 230. That's the only archaeological evidence. There is nothing in the first
We've
century.
excavated.
Absolutely nothing.
We have
No, we
excavated.
haven't.
We have drawings as well. So
no,
No,
we
we
don't.
we have
do
Not in the
drawings
not.
of
first
Jesus
century.
on
That's
Nothing
a
is
bronze.
lie.
You
dated
just
in the
keep
first
making these.
century.
Now, on the Mount of Olives, there's a site called Dominus Flevit. The necropolis there is fascinating.
Yes.
500 ossuaries came out of that necropolis, and a number of them with Christian iconography on them. Think about that for a minute. I mean, here you've got a pre-AD 70 Jewish ossuary with Christian iconography on it. You're talking about the earliest followers of Christianity. So the potential that ossuaries have to help us understand the New Testament culture is enormous.
Assertions walk, and like I don't think you actually have any evidences that you could bring forth. Like I don't think you could cite anything to us that would support your position on this. And to say that Acts is before 70 when we know, given a lot of the evidence, is that Luke Acts utilized the works of Josephus. Like we know
Yes.
So like
it's a second
I mean,
century,
for
we
example,
know that it's
Hold
a
on. Let
second
Paul
century
finish.
product, and we also have good reason to believe that Acts probably even comes like post Marcion, or at least that's my position, because I think there's certain uh, parts in there that seem to be a polemic against Marcion and Marcionism.
well, what we do have is we know that Polycarp, for example, he lived in the first century. He knew John. He was a disciple
Oh
of
my
John,
gosh.
the apostle. We also have
Polycarp.
Papias, who
But wait, you
was
just keep
also lived
making
in the
these
first century.
assertions,
We have
Wait,
and you're not
Ignatius,
I'm
contending with
sorry.
anything that
Ignatius
I'm
of
saying.
When is
Antioch.
Polycarp?
Um,
When is Polycarp?
Polycarp knew John at the time,
That's not
so
true.
Polycarp's
like he
writings
knew
are
John.
dated in 135.
But even later, actually.
135. That is
Yeah,
extremely early. So that means
135 to
that he could have
170.
absolutely lived in the lifetime of John. So that just proves my
No,
case.
well,
So
that's
he was 100 years old?
Polycarp never says that.
What?
Well, John lived to be an old man, so
Well,
and
again, you're just
Polycarp
making these
lived
assertions with no evidence. But like what I'm telling you
Polycarp
is
lived from
Polycarp
69 to
never
Polycarp
135.
was
claims.
69 to
So so
155. Yeah, so he wouldn't have
so
known
yeah,
John.
within his life he would have known
Yeah.
John.
You're just asserting that. But
What?
again, I'm telling you, Polycarp never says this.
Um I disagree. Let me see if I
Okay,
can
well,
find the writing.
wait. Go to his letters of the Philippians and show me where he says that he knew and learned under the
His letter to
apostle
who?
or disciple John. This is
His
letter
letter
to
to
the
who?
Philippians. It's the only
Okay, so the Philippian
Philippians.
church, what did exist then? Got it. Okay, nice.
Wait,
That
in the
was a
mid
good one.
second century? In the mid second century?
Did he write to the Philippian church?
That's just what the letter is titled.
Okay, so yeah, that means the Philippian church was there.
Walt, can
Like
I
I
ask you
think
a question
you're
as
you're
a
hurting yourself, my
Still
friend.
has absolutely nothing to do with your claim. Like I could
Well,
grant that in the mid-second century there's potentially like some form of a church in Philippi. That doesn't then
Yeah, I mean,
necessitate that
churches
it
don't just pop
existed.
up like churches don't pop up like out of nowhere, man. They obviously,
But
if it
wait,
was
but
there in the
that
mid second
wouldn't that
century,
wouldn't
that means it
matter.
was there before
It
that
could have been
time.
founded any number of times. We're talking about the
And
mid-second century
it
here,
still doesn't solve the problem. Like I
which
said,
is
we have
also
P52
when Ignatius is
found in
believed to have
Egypt,
lived.
so we know that the writings would have extended into the first century. So to say
Walk,
that
can
that's
I
not the case is
You're just
false.
can
asserting that with no evidence.
Walk, can I ask you a question as a fellow Christian?
I doubt you're a Christian, my friend. You're arguing with all these people, but sure.
Wow.
Yeah, well, my question actually gets to the heart of that. So
Well,
it's
you don't have
obvious
a
that
right to say that.
there are a lot of
The
complications
Bible
with the
says I do.
Bible.
No, it
Well,
doesn't.
actually, no. But there are a lot of complications with the Bible as far as facts and evidence and stuff. When, like, what is the point where you find that the evidence is a little bit difficult to argue and you actually start speaking as a Christian and saying, this is what I believe? Because we could talk facts all day long and debate it, but at some point you have to realize that theology on its face is about belief. You can't prove God. You can't prove a Messiah. You can't prove that even if Jesus was a real person who claimed to have died for everybody's sin, you can't prove that that's a fact in effect. So at what point do you come up on panels like this and start telling people this is what I believe and start testifying of your faith in the Christian faith?
Guys, I just want to jump in here real quick and just say that this guy who calls himself a Christian should be absolutely ashamed of himself. Okay, this whole debate, I have been presenting evidence after evidence after evidence, and then for him to say, when am I going to stop using evidence and just start talking about blind faith? And guys, as Christians, we should never believe something off of blind faith. And that's what they want you to do. Okay, and you can see that when they come up against a Christian who doesn't have blind faith, who can back up what he believes with real observable evidence, then they go berserk. They go crazy. And that's what we've seen here in this debate. You've seen how they've piled on top of me, how they're interrupting me, they're jumping in front of me, they're not letting me explain. And guys, it is so important that we don't be like this guy, because we have to be able to defend our faith, and that's what the Bible tells us to do, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in this clip. I mean, we can't prove anything in this world, so we go based off of evidence. Like, you can't prove the Big Bang. You can't prove,
But
the
do you hear what
beginning
I'm saying?
abiogenesis. We go based
The
off of
evidence,
I don't know
evidence.
what you mean
the
by
So
that.
that's what I'm
evidence,
using as well.
Walk, the evidence that you're providing is faulty at best. It's
Well, you
disputed.
guys have yet to refute anything I've said, including, especially the
Wait.
archaeological evidence that we have
I've given
video
you
and pictures of.
I've given you multiple reputations for why it's more likely the case that Luke Acts was written in the second
Based
century
off of nothing,
rather than
and
the first century.
you
That's
still
not
can't
true.
deny the physical manuscripts. Do you
Wait, you
deny
didn't actually.
P52?
You
Or are you
didn't.
saying that
Wait, you
that's not
didn't.
real?
Yeah,
Do you deny
P
P52,
fifty two
or
is
are you saying
dated
that's
to.
fake too?
Calm down, dude. P52 is dated to 200 CE currently by the John Rylands Library, where it is kept.
Okay, so it's a real thing then, right?
And no one's denying that P52 exists. Like it's dated
Okay,
to
I just want to make sure
200.
because so
Hang on, it's
far,
dated to
you guys have been
200
denying stuff.
CE, which is the last year of the second century.
Okay, and so
In fact, Brent Nongbury,
we know that
who's Brent
P52
Nongbury, who
is
is
a
a
copy,
papyrologist,
and we know that it
actually
didn't.
wants to move it to the year like 250 to 300.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of
So
course they want to move it.
I
They want
brought
to move
up
it
I
back as
am
much as they can, of
time
course.
because I
No,
am
you're just
time.
assuming that. Out of
I am
curiosity,
time.
I just want to ask him this just real quick, like, walk, because
Okay.
I mean, it says here.
you're
Hold
making
on.
this
It says I
accusation.
just looked it up. It says
Making this
P52 is dated to
accusation.
the mid second century. So
You're
you're
doing a
lying when you say
Google.
the
No, I'm not, because
200s.
you're doing a Google
Yes, you are.
AI.
You're lying when you say the
No, I'm not.
200s, and you got
Oh, wait,
caught.
I'm going to explain to
Go to the
you why I'm
Rylands
not.
Library
Yes,
yourself.
please. Let me explain it to him. What you're doing is you're doing a Google AI search right now. And if you actually go, like Kim said, to the John Rylands Library, which is Manchester University, where this manuscript is kept, that is where it is dated, is 200 CE currently. And then it even explains to you that when it was first found, they tried to date it around the year like 110 to 125. Then they moved it like to 150 to 175. and now it's at 200 CE. So I did not lie. You're being very dishonest as an interlocutor right now, and I really don't appreciate that.
Okay, so what he's not telling you is that when you go to the website, both dates are listed. This is not a concrete for sure thing. Otherwise, they would have removed the first date and they would have said that was a mistake and the correct date is 200 CE. Okay, the reason why they don't do that is because it's clearly disputed. Now remember, this is John's gospel, which is supposed to be the oldest gospel, and it was found in Egypt. Okay, so the oldest gospel of the four was found in Egypt between sometime in the 2nd century, okay? And that right there puts the Gospels within the 1st century because it would have had to have been copied and sent over to Egypt. It would have been copied by hand all the way there. And so, again, this is the oldest Gospel of the four, dated to the 2nd century, sometime in the 2nd century. So either way, my point stands. No, obviously, there's many scholars that date it to the mid-2nd century. So for you to say that it's for sure dated after that and trying to push it
Wait,
into the
I'm
3rd
going
century
off of where it's
is
kept
being
It's
at. I'm
dishonest.
mid to
going.
late. They give a range. They don't give just mid. They give mid to late 2nd century.
In fact, if anything,
Yeah,
if you
it
want to be
says
totally
100 to
wait, if you want to be
150
if you
AD.
no, it does not. It says if anything, it says 175 to 225.
Okay, but you understand that
That's
there are
starting
many
now.
people that say
Wait,
the opposite. So
that's me, Grant. Well, you're just saying many people, but you're not citing.
you're of
You're
course going to
not
use the
citing anybody. I
you're
actually
of
gave
course
you a
going to do that.
name. I actually gave you a name, Brent Nonbury, who does work on this stuff. You called him dishonest. You called everybody dishonest that disagrees with your position, which in and of
Yep.
itself, on your part, is very dishonest. Let me ask you this: how many books by Brent Nonbury have you written? Or I'm sorry, have you read?
I'm not interested in his work. I mean, I haven't
Okay,
read
so
it.
that's none, right?
So what does that
Right.
mean? What does that
So you
matter?
made an
Right. Okay.
accusation against somebody whose work you've never read. That's dishonest.
That's what I said earlier. He does his bias research. He doesn't do
Yep.
both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. It says that John Ryland's library owns the manuscript, and they date it to the first half of the 2nd century. So
No, they don't.
what?
They date it to 200. I've been on
Okay,
the
well
website
then
multiple times.
one of us is wrong here. What
Yeah, you're not on
do
their
you have the
website.
link?
That's the issue.
Do you have the link for that, or
What'd you do? Just Google it and you just
put it
believe
in
what
the
Google
comments,
said?
please?
All right, I will do your homework for you. Hang on. Oh wait, by
That's
the way,
one thing I learned.
did you get me that ID number for the Amarna letter?
Well, we've been going a million different topics. I
Well,
can
I'm
send
just
that to you
saying,
if you want.
like
But
you want
I
links,
mean,
but I don't know. You're not offering much.
So while you guys are taking a quick
well, I mean, I'm
second
also
break here, real
debating
quick,
5 people.
while
So
you guys
when
are
you do
taking a
that,
quick
you can
second
tell me
break
something.
here, I'm going to allow I am time to speak. He hasn't got to be able to speak since he's been up. He wanted to come up for a specific reason.
Thank you, Lakeem. The walk. I'm going to just share some information with you. You can do what you want to with it, okay? I'm not here to argue with you or any of that. I'm just going to provide information for you. The letters that you're talking about, I'm aware of these letters. I've looked into them and studied them myself. So, and what you're claiming is not fully true. There was letters written to the Pharaoh asking for assistance from these attacking people, but they're not Hebrew. They're Hebrew. They're the Hebrew people, not Hebrew. Okay, and the reason this is important that the Hebrew people, some of them come out of the Hebrew, but not all of them. This is a social group, not an ethnic. It's not the bloodline. Okay, so it's more of a social group than bloodline. So the problem that you have here with claiming that this was Hebrew, even though they're linked to one another in a way, isn't actually fully correct because this happened. These letters are dated to 1350 BCE. We know through history that the Israelites do not emerge until the 1200s after the late bronze collapse.
Yeah, that's false. That's disputed history, like we talked about earlier. They try to push the date back, but we've confirmed that through the Assyrian
Right.
It's
calendar that I mentioned earlier
wild
Right.
how
using
you
the
think
solar
that
eclipse.
your
Right.
sources are
Right.
all correct. Like what you
Right.
believe is all correct and everyone else is wrong. It's wild.
Listen, I'm not arguing.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not
you didn't even know what
walk,
we were talking about,
walk,
so
walk,
I mean,
walk,
you can't tell me
walk,
I'm wrong. You don't even know what you're talking
walk,
about.
walk, please. I don't know
You're
why people.
such an asshole.
I said this to a gentleman the other day.
Just call out the
It's
facts
certain
that you get
people.
wrong.
It's certain it's certain people that try people, and you're one of these people. Okay.
Yep.
I've never used my mod powers, not one time. There was a guy almost used it on the other day, and you're a guy I'm about to use it on now. I don't like using my mod powers to have a discussion with somebody. You should be able to control yourself. You are
You
an
just
adult.
cussed at me, sir. You can't
And
control
I
not
am
yourself.
insult
You're
losing
other
losing a
people's
information.
debate, and
intelligence.
now
Did you
this is
not
a
just see?
five-on-one
Did
debate,
you?
and you're
Did
trying
you
to tell
not?
me
Did
that
have a
I'm
sir,
out of control.
sir,
I don't
sir,
think so, sir.
sir? Did you not just see me control myself and stop? I stopped. I refrained.
No, you literally
I
started
refrained.
cussing. So
And
if
I
then he
you're
refrained.
gonna
stopped.
start doing that, then you need
Okay,
to
I heard him
control
stop.
yourself.
sir. I come up here to give you information. You can do what you want to with it. I told you in the beginning, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just giving you information. If you want to throw it in the trash can and give yourself a disservice, by all means do so and stay ignorant, okay? I don't care. I'm just trying to give you information. That's what I'm doing. So that's all I come up here to do, bro. You are incorrect in the people that's being talked about in the letter. Like I said, they do not emerge. This is widely accepted in academia that they do not emerge until the
There
1200s
are
BCE.
many scholars that
Why
associate the
you are on the
Habaru with the
fringe?
Hebrew.
You are on the
They are the
fringe.
same, one
Mm,
and the same.
You
they
are
are
in the.
not.
We can
Oh my!
find.
You are on the fringe. I just told you a moment
No,
ago.
I'm not.
These people are
This is
linked,
widely
sir,
accepted in the
sir,
No, it
community.
isn't.
There
sir.
are
It
there
isn't.
are stones
Oh
within
my gosh.
ancient is there are stones within ancient Egypt itself which talk about the Yahweh God, that it's literally written in stone. We have other ones that
Yes,
talk about the Hebrews.
yes,
So we know
yes.
the Habaru
Oh my
is
God.
the Hebrew. They don't just show up out of nowhere. Like you don't have a force.
So, who are the Habiru? Who are these people that are conquering these powerful Canaanite city-states? Well, the question is actually easily answered, because when we look into historical sources right around this time period of 1400, are there any people that are claiming to conquer the land of Canaan? And the answer is clearly yes. The Israelites of the Old Testament. The Habiru are the Hebrew Israelites. And this isn't just my opinion. This is the opinion of early scholars who are making these obvious connections. Jorgen Alexander Knudsen, the scholar who wrote the landmark work on the Amarna letters, wrote, "There is little objection to the view the Habiru are equated with the Hebrews." This theory is actually easy to test because all we have to do is take the details in the Amarna letters and then compare them to the Israelite conquest in the Bible and see if we have a match. To begin our comparison, we'll go back to Lachish and see what the biblical record says. In Joshua chapter 10 we read, "So they brought the 5 kings out of the cave, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon. Then Joshua put the kings to death. Then Joshua and all Israel with him moved on from Libnah to Lachish. He took up positions against it and attacked it. The Lord gave Lachish into Israel's hands, and Joshua took it on the 2nd day." Behind me is the ancient city of Lachish, and in the Amarna letters we have the ruler of Lachish that's killed in a separate incident, and then later the Habiru take control of the city. We have this same detail in the biblical account, where in the book of Joshua we have the king of Lachish who is killed in a battle, and then later in verse 32, the Israelites take the city of Lachish. Now in the next verse, Joshua 10 verse 33, the Bible mentions the king of Gezer. In the Amarna letters, the king of Gezer is begging for help from the Pharaoh of Egypt, and yet in all of the Amarna letters, we have no mention of the city of Gezer being taken by the Habiru. Now this war that we read about in the Amarna letters between the ruler of Gezer and the Habiru is really interesting when we take into account the biblical record. The Bible says that the Israelites were not able to take this Canaanite city, and that Gezer did not become Israelite until the reign of King Solomon. Later in Joshua 11, the Bible talks about the Israelites' battle at Hazor. Joshua 11 says, At that time, Joshua turned back and captured Hazor and put its king to the sword. Everyone in it they put to the sword. They totally destroyed them, and he burned Hazor itself. Now, this is a very intriguing site when it comes to the Amarna letters, because letter 148 is a letter that is sent from the ruler of Tyre that says that the Habiru have taken Hatzor. So in Joshua 11, we have Hatzor destroyed by Joshua and the Israelites, and we know that the city of Hatzor continued as a Canaanite city after that, because later in Judges 4, we have another conflict that is between the Israelites and the king of Hatzor. And so we have two burn destructions here at Hazor. One from the Joshua period, which is the lower one that's down underneath our feet here. And then the upper one is from the Judges period, because for whatever reason, after they took this city in the time of Joshua, it remained a Canaanite city. We know this because there's another conflict with Hazor in the time of the Judges, at the time of Deborah and Barak. In Judges chapter 4, we read that, again the Israelites did evil, so that the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hatzor. So Deborah and Barak pressed harder and harder against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they destroyed him. And then it's after that later destruction that this city then becomes Israelite. When the Amarna letters mention that Hatzor has been taken control of by the Habiru, this fits best with the details in the Judges chapter 4 conflict between the Israelites and the king of Hatzor. So in the mound of Hatzor, we have this massive destruction, which is the end of Canaanite Hatzor. And then later, a new city is built over the ruins of Canaanite Hatzor, and this is the Israelite city. So when we're thinking about the destruction of the Canaanite city of Hatzor that brings it to an end, the question is who did it? Now, I've been coming to Hazor for many, many years, and Dr. Bentor, who passed away this year, I've interviewed him many, many times, and he has this spiel, this famous spiel that he goes through about who destroyed the city of Hazor, and he goes through all the possibilities. There's only a few possibilities, and he goes through all the reasons why those aren't actually possibilities. And then he gets to the Israelites, where he says, the Israelites say that they did it. And this is true for this city of Hazor. It's also true for all of the land of Canaan. Who conquered the land of Canaan? The Habiru and the Amarna letters are conquering the land of Canaan. They're taking Canaanite cities. So who are these people? Who is this group that is conquering the land of Canaan? Well, the Israelites say at this same time period that they're the ones who did it. They conquered the land of Canaan. And that is why archaeologically we have all these Canaanite cities becoming Israelite cities. And then in general, the land of Canaan becomes what afterwards? The land of Israel. Why? Because it's the Hebrew Israelites who conquer the land of Canaan. And that's why we know that the people in the Amarna letters called the Habiru are the Hebrew Israelites.
Yes, they do. The Hebrew people do not emerge until the 1200s. This is when you first see them in real history, in 1200, after the Bronze Age collapse. This is widely accepted all through academia. You are on the fringe.
There are just as many people on the other side.
Please do not. No, there
And the
are not.
evidence is much stronger.
Why are you refusing to let somebody finish a statement? Why can't you just have a conversation? Let
I am
somebody
having a
finish.
conversation. That
Let
requires
somebody.
No, you're
You're
not.
not
You're
letting me
interrupting
finish. You're
every
interrupting
time
every
somebody
person that
talks.
speaks. Let somebody finish a statement and then refute it. Act like you have some common decency, man.
That's why you're being muted.
Okay, says the guy, 5 people on me. Okay.
It
Well,
doesn't matter how many people. Just let somebody finish a statement.
You're denying factual evidence, and
No,
you're
you're
saying that
wrong.
I'm the one that's being unreasonable with 5
Okay,
people on top
stop.
of me.
Just
I
hush,
don't
bro.
think so.
Just whoa, hush for me. Patrina, would you be willing to turn your camera on to a computer and put in what I'm about to tell you to show this man that he's incorrect?
Sure. Let me walk over to it.
So while she's doing that, where do you think the hundreds of thousands, if not
Oh,
millions, of Habaru came from that
I
emerged out
can't.
of
I
absolutely
can't.
nowhere?
I am time. My internet's down at the moment. Kim, can
That's
you do
perfectly
it?
fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Hold on, I'm
That's fine.
looking at.
It's good.
And where did they emerge from? Do you know?
They are submetic tribes of many sect of people. This is a social grouping, not ethic. These are
What
not
evidence do
bloodline
you have for
people.
that?
I mean, hang on. I'll get you the scholarly review on it. Okay.
No, I mean,
Okay.
I just want to know, like, what tablet, stone, like, where did you get the fact, like, that the Habaru is not the Hebrew, and
This is a
where,
scholar.
if they're not the Hebrew,
This is a
then where
scholarly
did they come from?
consensus.
Because there was so much that they conquered that
This
entire
is a
Canaanite land.
scholarly consensus. How many times do I got to say it, bro? How many times do I got to say it? 15,
Okay,
20,
based off
10?
of what? I don't care what scholars say. They have to
There
have
you go.
evidence to back up what they say.
Okay, now
So
hold
a
on,
scholar
hold on,
can
hold
say
on, hold on,
anything,
hold on,
but
hold
they
on,
have to
hold
point
on,
to that
hold on,
stone
hold
or
on,
Walk,
that
hold
piece of
on,
archaeology.
bro. But
walk.
if you don't shut the
Golly, stop. Walk
Katrina,
and let him freaking
He's
talk.
literally interrupting me
Katrina,
while I'm talking,
No, he's
Katrina,
and I
not.
get the one
No,
that's
he's not.
muted.
Katrina,
You started interrupting him.
Okay, you guys don't want an honest discussion here.
Katrina.
Thank you very much for
This
your
What?
is
time.
useless.
What? I
This
am
is
time.
useless.
Fuck off.
This is useless.
Thank you very much for your
What?
time.
This is
What? I
useless.
am
This
time.
is useless.